about what's dominated the news and the airstrikes on his military targets over the weekend. Zaki Kaf Al-Ghazal is from the Syrian Association of Yorkshire and joins me this morning. Good morning to you.
Hi there, Joe.
Was this the right decision in your mind?
I think so, but to be honest with you, Joe, it's almost a moot point now because these airstrikes were so limited in their scope, and it's almost a case of too little too late, really. I mean, the war in Syria happening since 2011, and the airstrikes have to be part of a broader, more comprehensive, more holistic strategy to end the war in Syria. But, I mean, a couple of limited airstrikes on chemical weapon facilities almost tells Assad and the regime, conventional weapons are okay, but chemical weapons aren't. So it's a bit strange.
For you, they didn't go far enough?
I think so, yeah. I think it's, like I was saying, it's really a case of too little too late. And I mean, these missile strikes will be making very little difference on the case of the war itself, and it gives off the message that any kind of conventional weapon attack, barrel bombs that are released by the Assad regime are completely okay. But it's the fact chemical weapons seem to be a bit different when the main drivers of the war haven't actually been chemical weapons over the last 7 years.
We heard from Boris Johnson, who said that there are no proposals for further attacks on Syria. What are your thoughts on no more action? Hello, Zaki? Oh, I'm afraid our guest seems to have disappeared there. That's Zaki Kaf Al-Ghazal from the Syrian Association of Yorkshire. Hopefully he will return to this discussion. But I'd love to hear what you think. Lots of ways to get in touch. Should Britain have joined the US and France on Saturday morning's missile attack on Syria? Was Theresa May right to order Britain's armed forces to join the airstrikes on Syria? 0800 111 4849. Calls are free from landlines and mobiles. Let's continue our discussion with Zaki Kaf Al-Ghazal, who's from the Syrian Association of Yorkshire. I asked about the fact that Boris Johnson said there was no proposal for further actions on Syria. What are your thoughts on that?
So I think the UK government, the US government and international partners really need to be thinking about a strategy to be ending the war in Syria, some sort of negotiated settlement, and one which most importantly ensures that Assad leaves as president. Even if it means a military issue, I think they need to ensure that Russia is really, really pressured to stop being his patron, stop giving him diplomatic and legal cover in the United Nations as well.
One thing that Theresa May has said is that this is not about regime change. So I suppose you'll hope that this could stop Assad being president. That's just not going to happen.
No, unfortunately it's not. No, Theresa May has said exactly what she said, and I mean, I do understand where she's coming from, because the issue with the Assad regime is so entrenched. I mean, Assad is winning the war at the moment with the scorched earth policy that he's been pushing through in the last 7 years, and he's terrorized civilians into submission. But the issue is, as long as Assad is in power, human beings will be hemorrhaged out of Syria as far as the world can see, and unfortunately groups like ISIS will continue to use Syria as a recruiting base.
There have been some people that have said that the gas attacks on the Syrian people are fake, that they have staged. What do you think about that? This is quite a shocking thing to say, to be honest. I mean, as long as groups like the United Nations verify the fact that this has happened, and they have, there is no other actor in the Syrian war which has the capabilities to ensure an attack like the attack that happened last week. And I mean, it's been proven that the Syrian regime has done so back in 2013, back in 2017 last year, and it was proven that the Syrian regime unfortunately didn't get rid of all the chlorine stockpiles it had, as well, as chlorine is obviously something that can be used for non-chemical weapon purposes as well. There's also been criticism of Theresa May not recalling Parliament to get the backing of these airstrikes. I know you were the airstrikes. Would you like, though, this to have been a debate in Parliament?
I think a debate in Parliament is always useful. I know that British Prime Minister under prerogative powers doesn't need to per se, but I do think that under convention, going back to the Iraq War in 2003, going back to the airstrikes back in 2013 and 2015, I think it's useful. It's always useful for a debate in Parliament. I understand maybe in this case that it was an issue of a speedy response, so Theresa May did not. But I do think that in the future, it's always better to be speaking to Parliament and to be really getting a kind of cross-party consensus on anything which is foreign policy related.
Zaki, the question now is escalation. You know, Russia and Iran said that there will be consequences for the strikes. Do you worry about that? How innocent people may be hurt?
Unfortunately, Joe, Russia and Iran have been extremely involved in the Syrian war from the very beginning. I mean, for people who talk about a worrying escalation in Syria or the situation becoming even more catastrophic, I mean, anyone who was observing Syria in 2011 at the beginning of the Arab Spring, you can't really imagine Syria far worse than it is right now. Russia and Iran have almost, with Iran in particular, have almost launched a ground invasion of Syria. There isn't an awful lot more you could imagine Iran doing.
What would you like to see happen now then, Zaki?
So I really think that the UK, US, France, and international partners really need to be putting pressure on Russia. Russia in the last few years has become a bit of a rogue state, a bit of a rogue nation, and it's breaking international laws, looking at what it's done in Ukraine, obviously now what it's done in Syria, and even its meddling in the US election last year. They need to be putting that sort of pressure on Russia to let Assad go. And they need to realize that Assad's a mad dog. He's not doing anyone any good, and he's bringing problems to just about everyone. I mean, he's a dictator, killed far more than 500,000 people in the last 7 years. And whilst the Russian regime, unfortunately, are not based on human rights, it is Russia that is kind of covering Assad's back in the United Nations, legally and politically.
Zaki Kaf Al-Ghazal, thank you so much for coming on this morning. He's from the Syrian Association of Yorkshire. More on this later on in the show. Let's get a quick travel update.